Welcome to this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market. We're going to be doing something slightly different this week. So our focus is going to be on new development in the luxury market in Manhattan, specifically the Selene, which is at 100 East 53rd Street. It has quite an interesting history, this project. So I'll share a little bit of that. But I was invited last week to an exclusive broker preview of the developer's closeout of the remaining residences at the Selene. I believe there's only 6 out of the original 94 that are still available. So they're almost wrapping this up. But I think this is a good thing for us to be talking about. Reason being, not all things are equal with real estate, and even in new development, not all things are equal. So I think, especially if you are an active buyer, this could be of real interest to you. Sellers, I'm not going to forget you. We're going to get into the numbers as well. I'll give you kind of an overview of what happened, where we're at in the Manhattan market, in the Brooklyn market. I do think, though, that this particular new development property is a good thing for us to be talking about because it is a very good illustration of what is working in what market and what isn't working in what market. So let's get started now. We're going to begin with the Selene. The Selene, as I said, is located at 100 East 53rd Street. There are about 94 units, as I mentioned. It was designed by Pritzker Prize-winning architect Norman Foster. Interiors were designed by AD 100 designer William T. Georgis in collaboration with Norman Foster. So anyway, this is a really interesting location, positioned between Park Avenue and Lexington Avenue. The Selene sits adjacent to the iconic Seagram building, surrounded by a lot of premier luxury shopping in the Midtown area, many acclaimed restaurants, very prestigious residential towers. This building was inspired by its neighboring Modernist landmarks. This is a 63-story tower, so quite tall, striking glass facade. And as you can imagine, with a glass facade, you get a tremendous amount of light and views, of course, in these residences, in addition to the Manhattan skyline. Real brief history about the Selene. In March of 2012, Abby Rosen and Michael Fuchs of RFR Holding regained control of this site. They announced that they were going to carry on with this project, and excavation work began in 2014. The building completely leased out that same year. And while it was set to be completed by October of 2017 rolled around and it was still under construction. In February of 22, this building was finally completed and it was rebranded with the name The Selene. As I said, 94 condominium units, most of which contain 1 to 3 bedrooms. There are 2 4-bedroom duplexes, lots of amenities on the 3rd and 4th floor, 60-foot lap pool, sauna, steam rooms, fitness center, yoga, ballet room, 24-hour doorman, keyed elevator access, library, resident lounge. And it also has 2 kind of great restaurants, Michelin restaurants. The French chef Joel Robuchon signed a lease for 2 floors of the building. He has an upscale restaurant there on the 2nd floor, and there's a more casual restaurant on the street level. In 2019, Le Jardinier, a contemporary French restaurant, opened on the 1st floor, so they took that space over. Le Jardinier received, as I said, a Michelin star in 20 and 21. You know, for a certain kind of living, the Selene offers, I think at this point, some excellent value. I'm going to give you an example of that. You're a buyer, right? You're looking for value. You're interested in new development. You are interested in living in Midtown and being around all the things that you want to be around. You like that part of the city. And now you're looking to see kind of where the opportunities are. The prices, they have been reduced by more than 50%. For example, let's take a look at a few of these remaining units. The other thing I should mention is this building is just super quirky. I have to say, I was even a little surprised at the differences between the styles of these residences. So you have some units that are kind of more, I want to call them traditional contemporary luxury, meaning the finishes are more in alignment with that. Then they have these units that they are referring to as lofts, and they are quite loft-like. You'll see from some of these photos, like for instance, if we look at 9C, 9C is asking $6,550,000. Back when this was originally listed, like really back in the day when Abby Rosen had it, they were asking like $6,000 a square foot. This is a 4,600 square foot apartment. It was asking, I don't know, 16 million, something like that. They really got out over their skis, but who can ever predict the luxury market or any part of the market, where the market's going, what prices will be sustained. When they launched this, they were launching sales, I think in 2019. We were at a very frothy part of the market. Prices were very high. People were getting all kinds of unheard of prices for their properties, including with new development. But then the pandemic, then the world changed. Now people really want to be back in New York. We're seeing a lot of people returning, wanting to be here. And now this same loft is being offered for about $6.5 million. We'll get into this a little bit, but basically this is a 3-room, 3.5 bath. You know, you can see by the pictures, this is open, kind of amazing, a lot of space here. I'm going to say that I'm not sure if a buyer in Midtown East is going to be looking for loft type properties. There's a little more alignment with that with the downtown buyer, but who knows? Let's talk about, here's the other one I want to talk about, because I just got to see these in person, right? This is a building that, I have some buyers who would be interested in that, but, listen, if you're interested, let me know. I'm happy to get you in there, go through everything with you. We can go take a look. Just let me know. Just reach out to me, post your comments below, contact me at Sotheby's. But going back, to give you an example of another style, we can talk about the penthouse. Penthouse is pretty nice. Gorgeous views of Manhattan, the skyline, the water. I mean, it's really, really beautiful. It's asking $29 million. Again, this originally was asking over $6,000 a square foot. You do the math. This is an almost 6,800 square foot apartment. So you're getting a lot of value. What's very interesting right now is I think, the sponsor is almost done. They've been at this for quite a while and they just want to wrap it up. So they've got these 6 units left, some smaller, some larger. As I said, you've got this penthouse, which is just pretty phenomenal all the way around. What I want to say here is for all of the remaining units, this is why I thought this might be interesting to buyers of this type of property. The sponsor is currently offering 2 years of common charges. That's charges that typically paid by the owner. For those that are not quite sure what that means, the sponsor is offering 2 years of common charges to be paid by them. That's a savings right there. Plus, you have this property that is now asking, this big trophy property asking about $4,200 a square foot. So I don't know. I really think the thing about new development, and this is the thing that's always so risky, is why I'm fascinated by new development. It's always a question of timing, right? The sponsor, the developer is looking at the numbers. They're trying to figure out where their best opportunity is, but they have to go through so much in order to achieve a finished building, or even a building that they can begin to sell off of floor plans. They have to secure the property. They've got to go through all kinds of approval processes. They have to apply to the Attorney General to begin their work and to make it a legitimate offering. We're talking years, and you can see with the Selene, this is an excellent example of a sponsor starting a project back when the market was very strong. Then the bottom fell out. That's back in 2008. Then it got picked up again in 2012. And by the time they were done, once again, the bottom fell out in 2020. And they've managed to get the rest of these properties sold. But my goodness, real estate, New York City, it is a high wire act. And I really appreciate what goes on here in terms of these new projects. By the time the consumer sees them, they think it's gonna, I don't know, like it just popped up overnight. But I think this is a good story. I'm not even going to call it a cautionary tale, because who's got a crystal ball? Who's got a crystal ball? Who could tell? That's my little story about new development and luxury. Any questions, absolutely contact me about this, because I go to these new development sites all the time. I see lots of new buildings. I know what's going on with all this inventory. So any questions, you just let me know, or curious about a particular building, let me know. To the numbers now, let's just say this. We are in mid-August. Manhattan inventory declined another 6%. We are now at 4,879 total properties. As I mentioned last week, new supply is down in some neighborhoods: Turtle Bay, Hudson Square, Lincoln Square, West Village. Whereas in the East Village, Hudson Yards, and Soho, the inventory is on the rise. We are seeing more properties in those few neighborhoods than we have seen in a long time. Quite interesting. And price. The $1 to $2 million segment, the contract activity over the last 30 days is up 3.4% year over year. The $2 million to $4 million segment, kind of similar. Contracts up 1.3% year over year. And the 4 million plus market that we were just talking about in terms of the new development in Selene, that is also improving. Contract activity is up 2.2%. The under 1 million part of the market is not doing that well. It is down 8.4% year over year. If you're a buyer, this is a good opportunity. Keep this in mind, though. The under 1 million, these are starter apartments, studios, one bedrooms. These can be a great buy, especially right now. They're a great buy, particularly, I would say, for those people who want to buy a condo. They perhaps, want to use it as a pied-à-terre, but if they decide they don't want to use it anymore, maybe they just monetize it after that. They don't have to sell it right away, keep it for their portfolio. Same with people with kids going to college here in New York City. Rather than renting, with rents being at their all-time high right now, perhaps better to buy a property. Their son or daughter can live in that property, maybe if it's big enough, get a roommate. And then when they're done with that property, whether it's, after college, or maybe that young person stays on and works in the city for a while till they're ready to go somewhere else, they're pretty great for an investment, because that money stays in your pocket, right? Rather than giving it to a landlord, suffering the increases that are inevitable in New York. Anyway, I would say if I were a buyer and I had a need for an under $1 million property, I would be really beating the bushes right now, because there's some good opportunity. In Brooklyn, the inventory decreased 3%. There's about 3,221 units in Brooklyn right now. 112 new listings came to market last week. That's down 21% week over week and 13% year over year. Looking at the contract signed, down 14% week over week, down 17% year over year. 166 contracts were signed. This is pretty typical for August, right? And nothing really noteworthy there, only that it's pretty typical this time of year. In Brooklyn, 111 contracts signed, down 9% week over week, down 8% year over year. Quickly, mortgage rates, and the average rate for a 30-year fixed conforming mortgage is down now to 6.71%. Final words, sellers, it is August. You have a few options if you want to sell, if you want to keep your apartment on the market, or you're thinking about selling. If you are currently on the market and you want to keep it on the market, maybe you're getting showings, maybe you're getting offers, just keep it on the market. If you're not getting showings, you want to take a little break, you want to give yourself that 30-day reset in terms of the internet so that people can initially not think you've been on the market for all the time you've been on. If they want to dig down, they will see that you have been, but let's just say for now, you're doing that. You could temporarily take it off until after Labor Day sometime. Or you could delist and list it instead on participants only, which I talked about last week, if your brokerage participates in that platform. And buyers, you don't have a lot of choices right now, but you do have some interesting opportunities. If you're looking for more inventory, September, we're expecting to see an increase after Labor Day. That should create some opportunity for you as a buyer, especially if you're a buyer that's been looking and looking and looking, and you suddenly start to see these properties coming on the market in the fall. The good news for you is if you move quickly on something that you like, you're likely going to beat out the competition of these brand new buyers who are maybe just beginning their search, and they've got to look at a lot of stuff before they can make a decision. That could be a good play there for you. That's it for this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market. I covered a lot of ground today, so if you have questions, feel free to post them below. You can always reach out to me directly as Sotheby's. I am happy to answer your questions, help you figure out your real estate puzzles, problems. I think this is a very interesting market right now. It's a bit complicated and contradictory in some way. Be sure, whether it's me or somebody else, that you have a trusted advisor at your side who has a lot of experience and really understands the market conditions so that you can benefit from that, whether you're buying or you're selling. As always, my thanks to Urban Digs and the Olshan Luxury Report. The work they do helps me to help you to make great decisions. If staying on top of the New York City real estate market is important to you, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any news. I'll be back next week with the very latest news on what's happening in the New York City real estate market. In the meantime, take care.